Houston Dynamo, Portland Timbers, Sporting Kansas, Los Angeles Galaxy,
Pitch Pass,
Toronto FC, Real Salt Lake, Chicago Fire, Columbus Crew, FC Dallas, New York Red Bulls.
Pitch Pass, your all-access credential to the people that matter in MLS. Here's your host, Greg Roche.
Hello. Welcome to another edition of Pitch Pass. Thank you so much for downloading the show. And I want to ask you another favor. Tell some other people about the show. Spread the word. Spread the love of Pitch Pass. At Pitch Pass to follow us on Twitter, and pitchpass.com for everything else you need on the show, including all the subscribing options like iTunes. And if you are subscribing through iTunes, leave a comment, rate the show. That's all. The same things we always ask. Oh, also, keep in the back of your mind, we are still looking for someone to write for us. Nothing heavy, no in-depth exposés, anything like that. Just some fun lifestyle stuff as it pertains to MLS. So if you are that person or know someone who could be that person, you hit us up on the email, pitchpass@gmail.com. All this is at pitchpass.com. Grant Wahl, senior soccer writer for Sports Illustrated, will join us later in the show. But first, the man who has taken MLS by storm and has led the attack for Toronto FC in their very solid start to their season. Robert Earnshaw joins us right now on Pitch Pass. Robert, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And well, first let me ask you, because I follow you on Twitter, so I see that you're out and about in T-Dot. You're embracing the city and making it your own, are you?
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, to be honest, that was one of the things. I mean, that's what's. It helps me, you know. I find that it's if I try and embrace the culture, the people, and you know the city, I think you settle in quicker. So you know, when I moved here, I was like, you know, what I've got to do is try and just take it all in, try and enjoy it, and try and settle in as quick as possible, just so you know everything else can fall into place. So you know, I'm enjoying it.
You were at a hockey game last night, seeing the Maple Leafs. I've seen you tweet pictures from Raptors games. Were you a basketball or hockey fan before you came over?
I've been a big basketball fan for a number of years now. So I always follow the NBA. So when I moved here, it was just like a bonus. You know, I can watch the NBA more. So I definitely had to go to the game. So. It's nice. I'm going to go to the Boston game on Wednesday night, so the last home Raptors game. So that's going to be fun.
So how much of a role did the extracurricular stuff, the city, the environment, living in North America, how much of a role did that play in you coming over here? It
played a big role. It played a big role because. You know, I had a friend of mine who actually played here, Carl Robinson, who I played with the Welsh national team. And then also when I was at Norwich, I played with him. So he always used to say, you know, about what it's like over here, what the league's like, you know, the quality, you know, everything. So he really filled me in on a lot of things and just getting to know. I mean, also, you know, I've spoke to a couple of people who've played over here in the league. So. I did a little bit of homework, and you know, just over a gradual number of years, it was something that appealed to me from you know, probably 2-3 years ago. Like, you know, it's something that I would like to experience. But you know, obviously, you know, the lifestyle, the extracurricular stuff, and everything was just a bonus because, you know, for me, like everywhere where I've always moved, it's always been the case. It's soccer first. You know, it's like. Can I see myself doing well at this place? Can I see myself, you know, being good and enjoying it? And can I try my best at this place? And Toronto fitted all that, you know, and that's why I came over.
How much of a factor was Ryan Nelson being the head coach in your decision?
It helped. Because, you know, I played against him. I spoke to a few people who knew him, and you know, everybody speaks highly of him. So. You know, as a person, as a guy and everything, you know, I knew that, you know, if he wanted to bring me over here, it was for a reason, you know. You know, because he, you know, he's played in the UK as well, you know, and he's seen me play and everything. So it helped because I wasn't going into something where it was completely brand new and there was no, you know, connection there or anything. So it just helps, it just helps. But, it also helps because he probably knows our mentality from the UK. So, with certain things and obviously like the moving over and everything, he can also sort of be there and understand, the mentality as well.
Is it a refreshing change for you? Going back to Twitter, I saw just random guys seeing you on the street taking pictures of you. Is it refreshing to be able to walk the streets of the town that you live in and kind of blend in with the rest of the people?
It is, yeah. It's nice, because like you can a lot of the time you can sort of walk around and get to explore the city and go for a coffee and restaurant and things like this. But there's a few people starting to recognize me a bit. So it's funny because I get a little bit shy sometimes, but it's cool. I do like the interaction with the fans, so when people stop me or for a photo or things like this, I really don't mind because, if I went to watch sports and, one of the players, I would want the photo or I would want to speak to them or whatever. So, I really don't mind. It's, I think it's part of the job, part of the duty that, and I enjoy it.
It's because you're scoring so much, Robert. That's why everybody knows who you are now.
Yeah, I'm just, it's funny. Like the other day I went to the basketball and like people were like, wanting pictures and stuff. So it's like, it's been weird because the first few weeks it was like quite quiet and you can just get around and just do your bits. But yeah, there's a few more people that are starting to recognize me. So, but it's cool. I like it.
I want you to be as confident and as cocky as possible when you answer this question. Did you think that you were going to settle in as quickly and start knocking in goals at the rate that you are when you came over?
Yes.
Now, is that the striker's mentality, or did you just feel like, you know what, I've seen some MLS games, I've heard from people like that I know that play in the league, and I feel like this style of play suits my abilities?
Yeah, there's a few factors because there's a few things because when I came over, it was I was coming over at I was confident, maybe because I've been over to Israel and playing there and because of over the last few years, I'm coming over here to try and do well and to be the best I can. And the only question was that if I'm on the pitch or not, and that's how I always think. I always think if you put me on the pitch, everything else will take care of itself. I don't worry about like, all right, I'm going to do well, I'm going to score goals because I feel like I can do that naturally. So the only worry was like, if you got me on the pitch or not, really. So, and with Ryan, obviously Ryan Nelson bringing me here and he wants me to be on the pitch, he wants me to play a lot of minutes. And it's like, for me, if I was doing that and thinking, right, okay, I'm coming over here and I'm going to play a lot of minutes, everything else I could say, it's going to take care of itself. I'll score goals, I'll try and do well for the team. So that's really why I say yes, because as long as I'm on the pitch, I think, I'll always try and do my best and try and do well, and hopefully, like now the goals are flowing. So, I can say yes, because I'm confident enough,
Yes. That's what Inform is all about, is me being able to say, yes, I knew I was going to do this.
Yeah. And that also takes, there's a lot of factors as well because, it's difficult, even though obviously I've got a few goals in it. It's been difficult because there's a transition in the team and the squad because it's a brand new team and we just, things are just starting, we're a brand new team and a lot of new players. So the fact that we've actually gelled pretty well so far, it's been brilliant, but we're still a work in progress. So I'm hoping we can try and, turn draws into very good wins. And that's going to be the big factor. But, like I said, we're still just a work in progress. So hopefully we can keep it going.
It's interesting that you bring that up because this is your first season in MLS and with TFC. This is a team that's in transition, especially after what happened last year. So do you feel it in the locker room and in the city? Do you feel that this team is off to a fresh new start?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely feel that. And it was important to get that across to all the new guys and get the point of, listen, forget what's happened with Toronto before. This is a brand new Toronto, brand new players, coaching staff, and, even Kevin Payne coming in was a huge, huge thing. So, all these things just as is automatically pushing us towards thinking and changing the mentality of, right, whatever's happened before in Toronto is happened. But this is a team that's, we're going to try and get results now. We're going to try and do something, try and achieve something. And, I love being part of that because, that's another thing that I look for in a team I'm playing for is, I don't want to be like mediocre. I don't want to be just settle. I want to do good. I want my team to do good. So it's just having, changing the mentality a little bit and just keep working hard.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but Canada is a country that struggles in this sport for a number of reasons. And you being a high profile player coming in playing on the Canadian centerpiece team, do you feel any obligation or duty to help out younger Canadians in Toronto and specifically TFC?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think we have to. I think it's difficult because, I think for us, I think we need to, like I said earlier, we need to try and change the mentality. We're going to try and achieve something. We're not going to always win every single game, or we're not going to win, run away with things, because we're a new team. But we're going to push ourselves as hard as possible and work as hard as possible because, for the fans paying to come out and watch us, and they want to see good games. They want to see us work as hard as possible. So we're going to try and achieve that. And then that's hopefully going to not have a knock-on effect in the city and everybody watching soccer, because, from what I hear and believe, from everyone, there's a lot of soccer fans and, especially kids and things like this. And if we can set a good example and do the right things for the younger kids watching us, this is going to be incredible because then it's going to put on a knock-on effect for the next few years, and hopefully, we can have a team that we're proud of.
There are a lot of Cardiff fans tweeting at you today with memories of your spell at Cardiff City. Do we congratulate you on Cardiff's promotion to the Premier League next season?
Oh yeah, I mean, I hope so. I've been a part of it. Like I said on Twitter earlier that I came into Cardiff City when I was 16. And just a kid who just wanted to play soccer. So as soon as I spent 8.5 years at the football team. So 8.5 years of my playing career, it was huge. And I probably had my best times there. So. To see them go up to the Premier League has been incredible. It's something I've been involved with. I've seen the fans and everything, the following. So it's huge for the city as well. So I think it's going to be a great thing next year.
Do you love the color change?
I disagreed with it, to be honest, because that was like I said, when I came through, it was always Bluebirds, and that's the nickname, and everything was blue. So to change to like the whole colors, I didn't really agree with it. So, but it's not my football club, and that's the way they want to go. But I'm sure the fans will support the team no matter what, though. So
before I let you go, you're entering your mid-30s. Do you ever ask Giggs, "Hey, what's your secret? And can a little of that rub off on me because I want to play as long as you play?"
To be honest, I actually the thing is, you've got to feel young. I feel young. I don't think of myself as I still think of myself as like mid-20s, say, because I'm lucky as well because my body and everything like that, I feel good. But I'm confident enough and everything, and I always feel young, So for me, I've got a lot more years to go yet. So I'm hoping I can achieve some great things before I finish up. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm just enjoying myself and trying to embrace everything.
You guys have 3 home games in a row starting this weekend against Houston. I know you guys aren't happy with the way that the season started overall, but for coming off of last season, TFC is definitely off to a really, really solid start. And 3 home matches in a row, you guys can really have a chance to do some business and move up the table now.
Yeah, and it's important. It's important. We need to try and turn these draws into wins. That's going to give us extra confidence. I think we're confident enough right now, but I think the fans want to see us win, and we're going to try our best to do that. So, I think hopefully in the next 2 or 3 games, if we can get a couple of wins, that's going to really, really lift everyone, the fans and the players especially, because I know the players have been working hard to try and win games, and we should have won probably a couple of games, in the last 3 games. So it's been tough to take some of the results, but also we've not lost as well, so it's going to be important for us to try and get wins and try and obviously get us up the table.
Great start to your MLS career, Robert Earnshaw. Thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
That's Robert Earnshaw. You know Robert Earnshaw. I don't need to tell you who that was. Wow. And make sure you follow him on Twitter. He's a very good tweeter. I like when people tweet things that aren't always soccer related, and he does a great job of balancing his private life and his professional life. So some good information about the team, great information about the guy himself. So make sure you're following at Robert Earnshaw on Twitter. I don't know if I know Grant Wahl's Twitter handle. I mean, I follow him, as you should, because he is the senior soccer writer for Sports Illustrated, in the know on almost everything, author of the book The Beckham Experiment. Fantastic read, by the way. You know all this, too. But we don't know. Well, you know what? Let's bring him in and ask him. Grant, what is your Twitter handle?
Grant Wahl, W-A-H-L.
It's pretty easy. I was just saying how Robert Earnshaw is a good tweeter because he balances it really well with giving us some glimpses into his personal life, but also keeping some professional stuff and giving us tidbits that way. I like those tweeters when my professional soccer players.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing where I don't actually follow that many athletes because not many of them have figured out how to do it that great, but I'll check him out.
Yeah, he's good. He's very good. And somebody said it earlier. I think, it was Kurt Larson of the Toronto Sun. So I'll throw the first question about Robert Earnshaw to you, and that is he right now the best finisher in the league?
You know what? He's very opportunistic, and sometimes that comes off as a backhanded compliment. But he certainly puts himself in good positions to score and to take advantage of mistakes, as we've seen several times now in the league. And I still want to see Earnshaw maybe, I don't know, have, some more typical goals or create more of his own goals before maybe we anoint him an elite scorer in the league. But he's certainly off to a great start.
Yeah, and I think also he gets a little more credit because of the way Toronto was last year and then how they are this year. Now, as I said to him, they're not lighting the world on fire, but they're definitely off to a better start this year than last year. And he doesn't really have a lot of creative players around him helping him out too much.
No, that's true. And so it means, in a sense, if you're getting a lot of your goals opportunistically, that if you get guys on your team who can set you up better for kind of more conventional goals, I guess, that would be, a real goal scorer there, a guy who could win the Golden Boot in the league. So if Toronto really does start getting some of those setup guys, then, the way Earnshaw is going right now, he's already been a really solid addition to that team in the league, but he could take it to an even higher level.
Well, which of the 4 teams, or you can go off board, of the surprising start teams are you most impressed with? TFC, Chivas, Montreal, or FC Dallas? Or you can go off board if you want.
Well, there's varying degrees now. We're starting to get a few games behind us, so it's not like it's the first 3 weeks of the season and it's hard to make any judgments. Montreal at 4-1-1 is, to me, the biggest surprise, just because I know if you looked at how they played in the second half of last season that maybe they had done all right, and Jesse Marsh, the previous coach, had actually started to build something a little bit there. And, there was a lot of questions as far as, like, who is Marco Schalabong? Would he have an impact on this team? Was he a smart hire or not? And they've just gotten off to a very good start. And we need to learn a little bit more, I think, as the season goes on here. But, Montreal's certainly off to a nice start. And, I think Dallas just being as good as they are and having 5 wins, the only team in the league that does, that surprises me a little bit. This seemed like a team that, had some issues potentially. They got rid of Brek Shea, and that in itself, he wasn't great last year, but he was terrific the year before, and I thought that might cause an adjustment period. And you look at who's there right now, having Kenny Cooper and Blas Perez up top is a really nice striker partnership, and David Ferreira appears like he's closer to what he was, during his MVP time in the league. So that's a team that seems to be playing pretty well, and if they hadn't, struggled late against Toronto, would actually have 6 wins. So to beat Los Angeles early in the season, makes Dallas look like a pretty solid team. And Chivas, I think there's 3 wins, which is impressive. A few question marks maybe. If you're losing at home to Colorado, not a good sign. But I like what El Chalis, the new coach, is doing there. He's a little unconventional and seems to be a really good motivator and man manager. So, yeah, plenty of surprises around the league. It's hard to predict this league.
Yeah, totally. And when I first look at it, taking the standings out, I always want to say Chivas first, just because I feel like anything that we could have gotten or will get from them over the course of the season is gravy as a objective MLS person looking at the league, not a Chivas fan, but it's just one of those things where you're like, you thought they were going to be so bad so that whenever they do anything, it's like a surprise.
Yeah, you can certainly make the argument that they're the biggest surprise in the league just by not being absolutely terrible. I'm still pretty well convinced that Jorge Vergara is a terrible owner, not just of Chivas USA, but of Chivas de Guadalajara. But at the same time, this team may be totally struggling off the field and, as far as getting people to come to the games. But I remember before the season started, I went down to Mexico and did a story on Herculez Gomez for Sports Illustrated. And, he had El Chalis as his coach at Puebla when he made his miracle turnaround in Mexico back in 2010. And he told me in January, he was like, look, El Chalis is a tremendous motivator, and this guy gets guys to run through brick walls for him, and he may not be the most tactically astute guy ever, but he doesn't need to be. That he is that good of a man manager and a guy who players love. And so that's been very interesting to see, how he's made that work with Chivas USA. And, it's an encouraging start, and maybe winning some games will cause some more people to come to the games. But at the same time, it's not like the ownership has done that team any favors, and yet they're not belly aching about it. They're just going out and playing pretty good soccer.
So let's look at the other end of the spectrum. Candidate for most disappointing team thus far would be probably United, DC United, Seattle Sounders, and San Jose. I'm going to give San Jose a bit of a pass just because of the injuries. And you also couldn't have expected the magic that they had last year to transfer over into a new season. So unless you don't want to discount them, which of those 3 teams has been the most disappointing thus far?
They're all about equal right now to me. The fact that Seattle is the only team that does not have a win in the league, that's pretty stunning. We knew that they would have an adjustment period coming into the season just because, they were losing Montero up front. They were losing Jeff Park in the back. And they did get Obafemi Martins at least sooner rather than later in the transfer window this summer. But, he's had some injury issues, and they've had CCL going on as well, and they did win a game in CCL. So I think it's a long season, and my sense is the talent there's enough to get into the playoffs by the end of the season, but there may not be a ton of patience in Seattle for a guy like Ziggy Schmidt. That's a major league field of that team with 40,000 people a game and the pressure to match. And So I'm curious to see how long they can go without getting a win before Ziggy's really on the hot seat. As far as San Jose is concerned, you mentioned the injuries. It's been really difficult for them. And, they didn't have Steven Leonard for quite a while, didn't have Alan Gordon for a little while. Now they're going to be without him for the next 4 weeks or so. But I think Marvin Chavez and Steven Beitashow are guys who maybe don't get a ton of publicity in MLS, but they were tremendously important to that team last year and what they did. And you look at Chris Wondolowski, and he's still scored a few goals, but he's struggling to an extent this season in a way we haven't seen in the last 3 years. And I think, a guy like Marvin Chavez was really important to provide width to that team and pace. And Wanda really does need those guys around him, I think. So curious to see what happens there. And then with United, that's surprising to me. That's a pretty big stunner. I look at that team heading into the season as a playoff team. And I don't totally understand the Leonard Cahoy experience, I guess. I don't see him as a starter in MLS. I don't see him as a guy who has shown much of anything, to be honest, since he joined the league. And I don't want to put it all on one guy because I think that's unfair, but I do think he's symbolic of a situation where DC just doesn't have a guy up top who you can totally rely on to score goals. And I wonder how long it might take for Carlos Ruiz to get maybe a shot up there, or somebody to get purchased in the transfer market this summer who could really help this team.
Let's go back to Seattle for just 1 second. Do you think in hindsight they are regretting that? I'm sure they got swept up in the Martins transfer situation, but he was healthy coming from Spain. You put him on a plane to get him onto the field in front of your home team, your home crowd, and then he goes right back on a plane back to international duty, only to come right back, and then the injury sets in. So it seems as if they would have been better off just going, okay, take your time. Why don't you go right to Nigeria and then meet us afterwards? And then they would have had him for Champions League.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I really do think if you're going to invest a lot of money in a designated player, you really do need to sort of think twice about whether that guy is still playing for his national team, especially if that national team is a heck of a long ways away. And, Thierry Henry with New York, he's retired internationally, and so you're going to get a lot of gains out of him every year as long as he's healthy. And so for anyone who, like Martins, who has to travel back and forth potentially for national team duty, especially from Seattle, that I think you should take that into the equation, especially if MLS is scheduling games during international days and continues to do so. But then again, it's not a perfect science, and I do think it's a very, very forgiving season in MLS, and we should keep that in mind before people get too worked up about teams that are off to rough starts, just because, Los Angeles got off to a terrible start last year. The lasted quite a ways into the regular season, ended up winning the league championship and being the best team in the playoffs. So do I wish that it wasn't so forgiving? Yeah, I kind of do. In fact, I look at the big picture in American soccer, and I wish a lot of things were less forgiving, like the hexagonal in World Cup qualifying for the U.S. national teams. 4 6 teams are probably going to end up making the World Cup, and I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, there definitely isn't that sense of urgency of every game matters, even though we feel like, especially after the first game for the national team, that we were hitting a panic button. But it turns out, everybody who was saying, don't overact is right, because it is a slog rather than that sense of every game is vitally important.
It is. I continue to believe that the semifinal round of World Cup qualifying in CONCACAF is actually a bit more dangerous than the final round. And that sounds crazy, but the U.S. took it to the final game of the semifinal round, and that's happened twice now for the U.S. since the last time they took it to the final game of the final round of qualifying. And, I guess it's probably a good thing for CONCACAF that they're able to get 3.5 teams into the World Cup. Does the region probably deserve 2 2 or 3. I think that's probably more accurate with what CONCACAF really is. But I'm sure Jurgen Klinsmann doesn't mind having that little margin for error, especially when he ends up losing the first game in the Hex. And you do have a very competitive hexagonal, I think, this year that we haven't seen as much in previous cycles.
Let's talk CONCACAF, but let's talk CONCACAF Champions League. I'm of the opinion that there are no more good job, good efforts when it comes to MLS's failure to advance in this competition. But I'm also not of the opinion that it's because Mexico has so much more money to spend. Does that improve depth? Of course. But if you look at this last round, if Los Angeles and Seattle had handled even a little bit of their business at home, then those road ties don't look nearly like the mountain that they were. And even though they were that huge mountain, Seattle put a scare into Santos. Where do you stand as far as where the MLS place is in CONCACAF Champions League as it regards to Mexico?
Well, I guess I look at it in the terms of Don Garber, the MLS commissioner, saying he wants to be one of the world's top leagues by 2022, which really isn't that far away. It's 9 years away. And, if we look at it in those terms, you have to become the best league in your region by how many years from now? 2, 3, 5? And I feel like MLS isn't that close to Mexico at this point. And, some people might disagree with me and think MLS is closer than I'm saying. But, I look at these competitive games, and when it comes down to it, MLS isn't getting the job done. And maybe we were a little bit spoiled by Real Salt Lake's run to the final a couple years ago and thinking that MLS was on the verge of getting a team to the FIFA Club World Cup and winning the region. And, it's weird. I do think on the one hand that the depth issue does matter, particularly when you saw the team that Seattle put out on the field for the opening leg against Santos, because they were missing several guys. Several guys were out of form. And the guys that they had out there I didn't think were totally ready for that kind of a game. LA, I think, just had 10 minutes of poor play toward the end of that home leg. And that was, such a huge pivotal moment in that tie. So, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a real frustration right now that MLS hasn't been back to the final of the CONCACAF Champions League since Real Salt Lake was there, and it makes you think that more of the reason Salt Lake did get there was just because of the quirky scheduling, where all the Mexican teams that year, all 4 of them in the quarterfinals, were in one half, and non-Mexican teams were in the other half, and I don't know if Salt Lake would have made it.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Do we, as fans or as journalists, overvalue the importance of CONCACAF Champions League right now as it pertains to MLS? Is it something that should be the thing that it is in our minds now? Well,
I hate to say that we overvalue, a competition that's a real competition at this point, I mean, and you need measuring sticks to find out where your league is. I just wish that measuring stick was an MLS team in the FIFA Club World Cup as opposed to not being able to get to that tournament. So, MLS has had some success against Mexican teams in CCL in recent years, or at least a little bit more success, where it's not a foregone conclusion that you go to Mexico and you lose. So, that's a positive step, but I just feel like I don't want to pat MLS on the head here and say, good job, because it's not a good job if you're not winning these tournaments.
I want to get your thoughts on the NBC deal with the English Premier League. That was all announced today as we record, and I don't really want to talk about EPL, but I do want to talk about this deal's impact on MLS. And what do you think it will have? What will be the impact? You lose Arlo White. I mean, I don't know if you want to give a comment on. I mean, Arlo is the best, but Arlo is also English, and there are some sections of fans who say, well, MLS should be called by American announcers. Does that matter to you at all?
It doesn't matter that much to me. Arlo, I think, has been very good with Seattle and then with NBC Sports Network as their voice for MLS. I guess my feeling is that there's a lot of talented British guys, voices that we've seen, calling soccer in the U.S., and I'm fine with that. I would like to see American play-by-play and analyst commentators get the opportunity, and so I did have a slight issue with the fact that, I was at the announcement today, very impressive announcement, that NBC made about their Premier League broadcasts. I just wish they would have had a U.S. voice among the talent that they listed, and the people they have are quite good.
Where would you like to see that in the studio package, or actually somebody in England calling the match who's American?
Somewhere. I'd just like to see someone at this point. Studio would be one thing, that'd be great. Maybe even a little bit better step to have them over in England. But the guys they've got will do a good job, and the scale of NBC's Premier League coverage is just sort of mind-blowing.
Totally.
As far as all the games they'll be showing live, and then the 600 hours of side programming. As far as MLS and where it fits in here, I guess it potentially could get a boost from cross-promotion during Premier League broadcasts by NBC Sports Network for MLS games on their channel. And maybe in some cases lead-in audiences if they decide to put some MLS games on NBC immediately after Premier League broadcasts. I don't know how often they're going to be able to do that, though. And I guess I also look at the rising profile of the English Premier League in the U.S. and the Mexican League in the U.S., both in Spanish and in English language now. And I think that should be, a reminder to MLS owners that they really, it's going to get even more competitive TV-wise. If they want to increase their ratings, I think they really need to consider raising the salary cap a bit. Not a tremendous amount maybe, but a bit, just to try and compete better with these leagues that are getting an even higher profile on U.S. television.
Yeah, and that's the first thing that I thought it's a red flag to me, because when NBC Sports Network is just showing MLS matches, well, then they're the star of their soccer coverage. They are definitely not going to be the star of the soccer coverage come August.
Well, NBC spent $250 million for the next 3 years of the English Premier League, and so it remains to be seen if they're going to have the MLS or have MLS beyond 2014, because that's when MLS's contract runs out with NBC and with ESPN, by the way. I do think in the big picture, all of this soccer on U.S. television is good for the American soccer fan, and all the increased rights fees and all that, the number of games, that's all great stuff. And I think MLS will certainly find even some competition among outlets to bid for their rights. But, I do think that they have to try and make sure that the Premier League and other leagues aren't the ones that end up really making soccer work and make it viable on television in the U.S. MLS needs to be in that discussion.
I was going to call you the expert, but I'm only 3 points behind you in the Pitch Pass Fantasy MLS League, so I almost consider us equals now as far as punditry is concerned as for soccer. I couldn't even get out with a straight face. I couldn't even say it with a straight face, Grant.
You really shouldn't use the term expert in the same sentence with me, just so you know, especially in fantasy terms. But I'm having fun with it. But I'm doing much better at the head-to-head stuff than the actual total points, I'm noticing. But I get into that thing every week, and I don't like losing.
MLS is doing a better job this year, because I know they've had it up till this point, and I tried it a couple years ago, and I really didn't like it. But this year, it's fun. I like the interface. They're doing a good job with the fantasy MLS.
Yeah, I think so. I think the MLS website is a relevant, viable website, and that's all really good. And I think actually, the MLS Live package is
fantastic.
Is definitely worth it. I use that all the time, but the fantasy is good. I'm definitely spending time keeping up with it, and I have plenty of other incentives to keep me dialed in with the league, but that's an additional one.
Yeah, and we appreciate you joining the Pitch Pass Fantasy MLS League. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today, Grant Wahl. Thanks, man.
Thanks, I enjoyed it.
Pitch Pass.
This is your voice. This is my red, white, and blue. This is my anthem to you.
For more show information, go to pitchpass.com.